Hi, I'm Cindy Y. Davis, and also at CYD, my initials, did Scientology. So Sid did Scientology. Yeah, I might make a few errors during this one. I'll explain in a bit. But anyway, hi, I hope everybody's good out there. I myself am a little anxious, not so much because of this chapter, but because of the next chapter. So I am trying to stay calm, sneak up on it, do it when I get there. Try not to get too anxious about it ahead of time, but then I know what's coming and you don't. So it's, I see it coming. Okay, let's sneak up on it. For right now, in this moment in time, I'm on chapter 6. And I kind of hesitate to name this chapter. So far, they've worked out when I thought about it at this point. But let's see, it would be slight rewind and then Nebraska, if I get as far as I think I might in an hour. Which, by the way, what time is it? Okay. I'm going to do this as close to an hour as I can. I know my last chapter went over by a bit. And when I'm sneaking up on things, when I get there, I kind of just need to do them. Last time I put it off a bit. All right, so chapter 6. Since we're doing a little bit of a rewind, I'm going to do a little rewind back to Kansas. Mainly because Kansas is where I kind of first started when I was little, and let's see, Miss Kindergarten, so first grade, maybe second grade in Kansas, was when I first started noticing the news, like on TV, the news. And I couldn't miss it that time because I know where I was when Kennedy died. And that would be Robert F. Kennedy. When he passed, we were in Nebraska living on base housing. You know, I should have brought that one up for anybody that may not be watching chapters in order. That was after that. So 1963 to 1964. Let me make sure I've got this right, but I'm pretty sure it was during that time. Ziggy, when did John F. Kennedy pass away? Robert? John? It's always so confusing.
John F. Kennedy died on November 22nd, 1963.
Okay, so we were there. And that was the first news I remember. And that's like seeing on TV, watching on TV. Ziggy, this is for me more than you. Robert F. Kennedy versus John F. Kennedy. Please tell me. Ziggy. Robert F. Kennedy versus John Kennedy. Same person? Brothers? Tell me.
They're brothers, not the same person. Robert F. Kennedy was John F. Kennedy's younger brother, born 8 years later in 1925.
Okay. Thanks, Ziggy. That's all.
You got it. Happy to help with the Kennedy history.
Yeah, things I should remember, and I do remember that later on the news. Having a moment. We might have a few moments during this chapter. I'm going to try and make this a fun chapter. Really, I'm going to make this a fun chapter. Okay, so when John F. Kennedy passed, we were in Kansas at McConnell Air Force Base in Wichita, Kansas. So wanted to put that out there because that was the first actual news I remember. Now, it's too bad you can't open a billion windows in the same app at the same time on an iPhone. Someday, huh? Alrighty, so back to the cult stuff. It's just what I call this note, so I know where to go to when I'm speaking with you. All right, so we've taken care of that. First news, I remember. Then Washington after that. That's so funny. All right, here we go again. Washington Air Force Base would have been, we went from McConnell to 6567 Fairchild Air Force Base, Spokane, Washington. All right, back to that one. And it's only going to be a one-item thing also. While we were living in Washington, that's when we actually started going to races. So we went to, was it then or later? I'm getting distracted again. Ziggy, when was Haystack Calhoun wrestling?
Haystacks Calhoun was born in 1934.
When was he wrestling? What years did he wrestle?
Haystacks Calhoun wrestled from 1956 to 1980.
Oh, wow, he wrestled for a long time. Anyway, so we did two things. There's a two-item thing. They kind of go together. Family entertainment. This is when we started going to races. As you already know, Dad, big into cars. I fell in love with the car when we got our 65 Impala, Chevy Impala, midnight purple, white convertible top. Anyway, and we've been to Guam where I washed and waxed it every week for 2 years. So anyway, while we were in Washington still, before we went to Guam with that car, we used to go to dirt track racing. And at the time, a lot of, was it NASCAR, pre-NASCAR? A lot of the early guys, Richard Petty was racing dirt track. Now, not up in the Northwest where we were living, but down in the Southeast where he was living in North Carolina and all. So, but we used to go to dirt track races. I remember vividly this one time watching whoever it was, and there was a bridge that went over like a river because it was dirt tracks, but it was like regular roads, dirt roads, and went off and into the, it was more of a creek than a river, but went off into the water. And I remember all the safety guys going and helping him out, and the car was half in, half out of this, somewhere between a creek and a river. So that was always fun. Another thing we did for family entertainment was we went to a few, I don't remember going to them any other place that we lived, but in Washington we would go to wrestling, and we did see Haystack Calhoun wrestle back in the day. And before? It had to have been before, because after, everything was insane after a wrestling match. And they were in, not the size of like arenas or places like they have now, but it was a good venue, pretty good sized venue for wrestling matches. And I remember before one going up, and Haystack Calhoun always wore overalls with like one side unstrapped, which I kind of remember doing later in the day on the farm when I was married, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Anyway, he would always have like one down and have some kind of like striped t-shirt or something under it. And he was a big guy. And I was, God, what were the years? I'm not going all the way back. It was, we moved to Guam. So some 65, 67, somewhere in there. So I was 8 or 9 or 10, somewhere in there. And I tried putting my arms around him, and they just stretched, and I know you can't see it, but they stretched straight out. He was a huge human being. But I remember him having a very friendly face, which he must have had to have to be like, you know, his size, a giant of a man, at least at the age I was at, and such a friendly face. And he was, I believe he was a good guy in wrestling. So, and back then we believed wrestling was all, you know, real. I know it's athletic, but anyway, we believed it was all real, especially as kids. Oh God, was it there we once saw, and I don't know who it was, and they were like in this cage, and it was teams, and me and my brother and my sister and my mom and dad were all there, but the three of us kids, we believed this shit. At least, I don't know if Marcella really did. I think she did. But I remember screaming and crying and upset because they were like, this one guy was like all cut up from stuff, and they were throwing salt in his wounds, like literally throwing salt in his wounds, which is something as a kid you don't realize is a whole thing, throwing salt in a wound. But I remember crying and being so upset because they were throwing salt in his wound. So that is one of the last ones I remember, but I just remember being almost hysterical over this stuff. So anyway, that was some Washington entertainment. All righty. Oh God, we're not quite there. Was it when we came back from Guam? Yeah, okay, so we are. Okay, so then a few things about Guam. My brother, Gary, he texted me after he watched the last one about, actually I did two. I did a Guam and I did a Guam, Japan. So chapter 4 and chapter 5. And he did some fact checking, and we both agreed over text that we lived with some myths while we lived on Guam, especially as kids. I had mentioned the Marianas Trench being right up there where the water changed color in that one picture and was just a dark blue line. Well, it was a very incredibly deep channel, and I'm not gonna like Google or Ziggy how deep it was. Just making sure he wasn't really hearing me. They're always listening. So anyway, it was a very deep channel, but Guam was the closest landmass to the Marianas Trench, but it was, he told me in the measurement I don't know how to do, but approximately 200 miles from there. But you could tell there was the deep channel. So when the B-52 bomber went off the runway and into and down, it was not the Marianas Trench, but it was a very deep channel that the island was up on pillars out of. So thank you, Gary. I know he's gonna come on some point, and when he does, I should leave all his fact-checking things till then, but I figure I would do them in a rewind. Okay, what else? Oh, I left out, I did talk about the shrews. I talked about, what was it, the brown tree snake, both of which, and the toads, which were brought there, and then the snakes, which probably came on a ship or something, but they came, and they're invasive there. I don't know if they still are there and in Hawaii. Yeah, shrews, whatever. The critters. Well, one more critter, because I remember seeing a really big one, and I was telling Gary, and a little kid, so I'm thinking 2 to 3 feet. It was probably closer to 2 feet. And we used to think they were iguanas, because that's the name we knew. But they weren't. They were a monitor lizard. And Guam is part of the Marianas Islands. Well, this lizard was a Mariana, I don't think it had the S, Mariana monitor lizard that would get up to about 2 feet. Okay, and I think I must have mentioned, or he wouldn't have mentioned it, I must have mentioned that Yigo was the capital of Guam. I may have done that. I didn't mention that we went to school there briefly, but actually Agana was the capital when we were there, but he said either it's spelled differently or done in Chamorro language. I can't pronounce it. It has accents on it, and for living all over the world, I never did learn another language. I can rip the shit out of English. I don't need to be ripping the shit out of other people's languages. I never had an ear for languages. So anyway, I'm not going to try and pronounce it, but when we lived there, it was Agana. Guam was the capital. Okay, I still think it's the same city. They may have renamed it. I don't know for sure. Oh, now here's a fun one. Oh, actually, let's do this one first. I've been trying to mention what type of work Dad did in the Air Force on the different bases we lived. Washington, I don't really remember. I know he worked on Titan warheads when we were in Kansas. Florida missiles. But in Washington, I'm not exactly sure, but I do have him hopefully writing up for me when he changed ranks and changed stripes, which I remember sewing on to all of his uniforms and helping Mom with at the time, and then getting older and sewing them on. And now they Velcro. They're all Velcroed on. Anyway, it's a whole thing. And when you sewed them on too, you had to make sure they were perfectly centered on Dad's perfectly like starch seams down the center of his arms and legs and all. But the stripes had to be, centered. Anyway, I'm distracting myself, trying to drag it out. Okay, so on Guam, I don't think I had mentioned that he was in charge, at least for what he was doing. And I need to know his ranks at certain places. But anyway, he was in charge of loading bombs onto B-52s out of Guam at that time. And B-52s were constantly coming in, going. And I don't think I mentioned either. I mentioned that years later, I wasn't able to sleep well because I wasn't hearing them all the time. And I grew up hearing aircraft like that, and mostly B-52s all the time. I mean, within minutes of each other at times, just constant. So, and they all have distinct sounds, and I love the sound. I know the sound without looking of a B-52 coming or going, or just flying. The sound of what was it? C3, because they squeal. They got this really high-pitched squeal on a C3. But I think that's like a Navy plane. God, what was the other one? I thought of it last night. When I think of it, I'll text you at 2 in the morning and let you know what it was. Okay, so that's what Dad did there, loading bombs, which is why he was able to so easily get a hold of a bomb loader to bring home the 2 palm trees I told you about in chapter 5 or 4. They've been 4. Alrighty. Painting shoes. Okay, so I gotta shift a little. If I don't keep myself loose, I'll never gonna make it to the next chapter, which I plan on doing right after this one. And it's not gonna be easy, so I need to be chill. Okay, alrighty. Painting shoes. Military. Gotta have your uniform looking good, like I was saying about the stripes going down the center of the seams, or the ironed seams, the ironed creases. Anyway, so shoes gotta look good. Everybody's seen that in when there's DIs and the Marines, and everybody's gotta look just right and have their shoes all shined. Well, Dad, I don't know if it was a particular leather paint or whatever, but okay, this is what he would do. And then I started helping him do this. And then we kind of made a very low income small business out of doing it, because you hardly get repeat customers doing this. But what we would do is we would sand down with a heavy grit the regular black military shoe, and especially on Guam, they were not the ankle high boots or anything, they were the actual shoe, the black shoes. Did they wear the black shoes with the fatigues, green fatigues? Yes. Did they wear the black shoe? I think they wore the black shoes with everything. I don't really remember a whole lot of it. Maybe more of a dress shoe, same shoe. Anyway, the black shoes that were regular shoes, we would sand them down with a really heavy grit sandpaper until we're getting on the leather, and then kind of sand off the finish a little with a little finer, not much finer, but you're basically taken down to pretty much the leather, the whole shoe. And then we took this paint and we would paint it onto the whole shoe. Now the laces are out. It's still got the little eyelet things in there. Those things have a name. I can't think of what it was. Scientology. Look up every fucking word in the dictionary and derivations and all of that. So I know they have a fucking name. I just don't remember. Thank God. Okay, so... but everything else is on there. And then you paint them with this black paint, and it's smelly, but it's not the worst smelly paint I've ever smelled. And you paint it on, pretty thick, and then you put it in an oven. 350 degrees for, I believe it was like 10 to 12 minutes, and you let it bake. And the oven's preheated. And you put it in there and you let it bake, and you can smell kind of the leather smell, you can smell the paint smell, and you let it bake. You take it out, you take a finer than the original, you take a finer grit, but not really fine, a medium grit. You take like a medium grit sandpaper and you sand the whole thing, and then you paint it again, and then you put it in the oven again, and then you leave it on 350 for about 10 to 12 minutes. You can, I think, tell by the smell more than anything if they're done. And you take it out and you use a finer grit. And I believe the third time was the charm, because you use a finer grit on it, and then you paint it again, you bake it again, you take it out again, very fine grit, and then wax? Some sort of wax, some sort of wax is all you needed, and not much, like later. Anyway, just a little bit of wax it down, and it just shines. If it gets wet, it's red wine, white furniture. If it gets wet, it just beads off. And if you need to clean them, I remember Dad coming home at the end of the day and would like a little on his sock and done. And that's what made other people want to do it, is you didn't have to polish and polish anymore. You didn't have to get like black polish and buff and buff and buff. Yeah, paint them once, they're good to go. And every time anybody would get a new pair, yeah. So that's what Dad and I did a lot of times. Not after, like weekend. It was kind of a weekend thing, maybe a Sunday afternoon thing. Like I said, we only had 3 hours of TV, and we played outside, and we washed and waxed cars, and we did lawns to like military standards for inspections and shit. So that's entertainment, folks. So we did shoes. I love doing things with Dad. I really did. I liked that. I learned to do so many things, and later on, and I would surpass the master in one front. Okay, so painting shoes, B-52s. Oh, Mom, Mom, while we were on Guam, did take a trip, and Dad reminded me, because we were talking, I talk to him every Sunday. I give him a call. He lives across the country in Florida, and I'm in California. So, and I called him, and we were talking about Mom going to Saipan, and she went with a neighbor, and that's right, I had forgotten, because she's in the pictures, and I have all the photos, and but it was important that Mom went to Saipan with this neighbor while we lived on Guam, and was there, I don't know, maybe 5 days. And it becomes important later, but it's also important that you know now that, yeah, Mom took that trip to Saipan. Let me see. Okay, yeah, when we left, these are my iPhone notes. When we left Guam, it was exactly 2 years after we got there, and that's the only place we ever lived where that happened. We arrived there on 17th of July, 1967, and we flew out of there on 17 July, 1969. So exactly 2 years. And I didn't really, I thought it was, actually it was early mid, before May, or around May, when we went R&R to Japan of 1969. And I may have said earlier it was 68, but it was actually 69. So anyway, we did make it back to California in time to see the 19 July 69 moon landing. So we were traveling in between from the 17th to the 19th, but I do remember, so that's the next piece of real news that I remember seeing since Kansas. And on the way back from Guam, just like when we went to Guam, we refueled in Hawaii. We never got off the plane. We refueled in Hawaii. So, been to Hawaii twice, never walked on the state. So, would like to someday. Okay. Let's see. And then from Guam, of course, before we move to our next locale, give me a second here. 1 second. Okay. Before we move to our next location, let me check. All right. When was I born? Where was I born? So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, so we're talking 1969. I'm 12 years old, just turned 12. And this is, 1 second. Oh my God, if you could see in my head. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is the 8th place I've lived since I was born, was Guam. So very soon we're heading to the 9th place I've lived. And I am, how old did I say I was? 12? Yep, 12. Okay. And for those of you that may not have been here in previous chapters, I do not remember things by how old I was whenever, ever. I remember what year it was and where we lived. Not so much in relation to myself and my age. It was a broader spectrum, especially when you're moving basically every 2 years, sometimes less. All right, so where was I going with that? Anyway, we're going to be heading to our next location, but for right now, we have left Guam. We're in California. We're having family reunions. As before, when we go to my mom's folks, my grandparents on my mom's side, both of which live in Angwin, California. So they live within a couple miles or mile of each other. My grandparents, both houses there, still standing. But anyway, up on the mountain. So we had family reunions mainly at my mom's place under the willow tree. Huge, beautiful willow tree where you could fit picnic tables all the way around it. Have plenty of room to move all the way around it, even with tables. And it was the perfect, from however tall it was humongous. The willow branches hanging down to the grass line where they were cut perfectly at the grass line all the way around the tree. And then my step grandfather would cut out an archway that you would go in and out of, under the tree and out of the tree through. So we're there again, having our family reunion in July of 1969. And there I meet, for the first time, I think, that I can remember. I have a couple cousins. I have a cousin, and they've already passed, that I never actually met. These are first cousins, because we were never in the same place at the same time. But anyway, and that was on my mom's side of the family. And a lot of their family lives really close to where I live now. And I have not met them either. Friends on Facebook, but have never met them. Anyway, way ahead of myself. Okay, so we're having family reunion with, oh, and I met my cousin, female cousin, became my idol. I had always chewed my fingernails. I quit biting my fingernails then just because I wanted them to look like hers. And she was telling me that I really should quit. And I actually did. Instead of biting them, when I would trim them, when I would clip them with clippers, I would save them and I would bite on nose. Now that lasted, I kind of remember that lasting at least about a year, and then I quit doing that. And I no longer had the urge to bite on nails, whether they had been clipped off or connected. So I did grow my nails out. But anyway, she became like my idol, this cousin, which does become important in one of the next coming chapters. Okay. Yeah, so we would all meet and take pictures, and we did at my dad's folks, you know, like a mile away, and see all of that side of the family. And that was always fun. It was a little more sedate. It wasn't as many people, not as many cousins and everything. Well, sometimes, a lot of us kids a few times through the years, but it depended on who was living where, because many of them, my dad's sisters and brother had stayed in Seventh-day Adventist church and had become teachers, and just like their folks had been, dad's folks had been teachers, or grandpa had been a teacher. And now I'm thinking of all these random factoids about all these relatives. I also keep ancestry and all the family photos from both sides and keep that history. So when I think of each family member, all kinds of pictures and facts and things go through my mind. Anyway, I was just thinking of many of them from my dad's dad, my Grandpa Davis. So anyway, we got with them and we did pictures. Now, I also had an Aunt Betty. My dad's, he always said, one of my dad's sisters, and all of them went by mostly like their middle names. Once I got into the ancestry stuff, I was like, and then nicknames of those middle names. So I thought that was interesting that I don't think any of them used their first name as their first name. Anyway, my Aunt Betty, who had married my Uncle Don, before we left for Guam and everything, did live up in Calistoga, up in the mountains, in a place that had like an actual water tank where we would actually, like, I remember swimming in the water tank. Like later on you would see, or it was actually later on that you would see on Petticoat Junction, where the sisters were swimming in the water tank. And it was a wood water tank. Same type of thing. Wasn't as big as the one they showed on TV though. But anyway, I remember swimming in the water tank. I remember we're all cousins going out, and it's like a ranch, animals and stuff. So, you know, dust and dirty, and, you know, all taking a bath together. And it was just some really fun times because we didn't grow up around family. We grew up around strangers, always. You meet people, they come, they go, they come, they go. I read something the other day, and, you know, always saving things like that and screenshots and stuff. never underestimate the ability of a brat to walk away and never look back. And that kind of hit home when I saw that. There are a few things about brat life I've seen in brat things from other brats that ring really strong bells with me, and that was one of them. Never underestimate the ability of a brat to walk away and never look back. And it's so true. It's like the Wizard of Oz. People come and go so quickly here. Everywhere we lived, it was like that. All right, where was I really? Okay, we were in Calistoga at my Aunt Betty's. How am I doing? I have to glare the light. Unglare the light. Doing pretty well for what I have here, I think. I'm going to try and fit Nebraska into this. Okay, so anyway, my Aunt Betty and Uncle Don, this time when we went back, also on a ranch, but a ranch they had recently moved to after leaving the other one that we had seen 2 years previously. And this one, if you went like up Main Street if you went down the hill, the mountain from Angwin and St. Helena to Silverado Road, if you went straight across that and up, or straight across that, you would go through Main Street, Calistoga. And if you go up the other side, straight up, my Aunt Betty and Uncle Don lived up there. And still have their ranch up there. Anyway, we went to stay with them, and they had goats and learned how to milk goats, and that was a blast. And later on I learned cows, but getting ahead of myself. Anyway, learned how to milk goats, loved goat's milk, love. It also came in handy later knowing about goat's milk. Rode horses, got kicked by a horse, riding another horse. Evidently I got it too close, didn't really know anything about horses and that they could get too close. So the one in front and a little over bucked kicked me about 5 or 6 times in the calf of my leg, and I had nice little horseshoe marks there for quite a while, and it swelled up a little, but really it didn't get to the bone or anything, but it hurt. But it was kind of like, I got kicked by a horse. And they lived there. They got kicked, they got thrown, they got all kinds of stuff that I never had till later. So that was exciting. Hanging out with them, it was 4 girls, and then the 3 of us, my older sister and my younger brother. So the 3 of us. And this time we stayed a little bit longer, and I took shooting lessons. Marcella wasn't interested. Gary was too young. He wouldn't have been able to do it because Gary's 2 years younger than me, and my sister Marcella was 5 years older than me. So I wanted to take shooting lessons, so I did. Sorry, got a hair. Oh, it's the only thing about long hair. They creep down your body. Anyway, so I wanted to take shooting lessons, and it was 2-3 days only to take it, and I don't remember any of Don and Betty's girls doing it. I'm pretty sure that they already were familiar with shooting. So anyway, how old was I? I'm 12. So I only remember certain things. First of all, we learned with a rifle. I believe it was a .22. I couldn't say for sure. And we learned prone. So we learned laying on our stomachs and using our arms and elbows, how to aim and how to shoot. And we learned to shoot at targets. And we also learned gun safety. And the main thing I remember, which becomes important later on in my story, never point a gun at anything or anyone you don't plan on shooting. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. You never point a gun at anyone or anything you don't plan on shooting. thank goodness that was just like a repeat in my brain anytime I was near a gun. And it became really what I think, and we'll see what you think when I get to this part of my story. I think it was really important at the time it happened. I think it, anyway, I took shooting lessons. That was a really important lesson in shooting lessons. I was also really good at it. And target shooting, I came in second, which I was like, I think kind of first realized I might be competitive in any way. So anyway, I really enjoyed it, and I came in second. Now, the top 3 could go hunting, and I really didn't want to go hunting. I had no interest in killing anything. I just wanted to know how to shoot and the accuracy of it, and loved it, and things like that. Later on, where it became about accuracy and stuff, kind of became my thing, but I didn't really want to go hunting. I did hunt later, appreciate hunters, appreciate people that hunt for food in places where you're allowed to hunt for food at certain time of the year, where you can hunt for different food. All for it. So I did enjoy shooting, but I didn't want to go hunting. Myself had no interest in shooting anything other than targets. Okay, so moving on. It seems so serious because it's gun stuff. And there's some gun stuff that's just gun stuff. And then there's other gun stuff that has become ridiculous. Just, and now I can't say it without saying something, but yeah, it was a 22. I was gonna go hunting with a 22. I wasn't gonna go hunting with a semi-automatic or an automatic rifle. That's me. Okay, so I did take hunting lessons. The lesson learned was a very important lesson learned. All right, so, well, we are gonna make it to Nebraska. What time are we at? 48. Got about 20 minutes. Alrighty, cheers. I know what's coming. And when I do get there, I'll have already snuck up on it and just have to say it all. But I do want to get through Nebraska. So, we left the 65 Chevy Impala, midnight purple, white convertible top on Guam. And it was in really good condition and had some underbody rust, but I'll tell you what, the body of that car did not have one teeny rust spot on it. I watched them wax that thing every weekend for 2 years and mowed the lawn, and later did a motorcycle for 50 cents a week. All right, okay, so our next stop, let me do this one. Geez, we're getting to another place. Alrighty. So it's 1969. Now we were here briefly. The only place I had ever been so briefly before was Arizona when I was 6 months old, before we went to England. All right, 1969 to 1970. We went to Nebraska, Offutt Air Force Base, SAC headquarters, Strategic Air Command. I recommend the movie, just Strategic Air Command. I think it's color, but I think it's 60s, not 50s. But anyway, it's called Strategic Air Command. And I'm not going to think of the name. Oh God, I watched so many movies. The same tall, thin, slim guy that when a bell rings, an angel gets its wings movie, Christmas movie, should be showing a lot. It's a Wonderful Life. What was his name? Again, I'll text you at 2 in the morning when I remember that, or I could use him. Jimmy Stewart. There's a lot of sorting through stuff to get to it. Okay. So, Jimmy Stewart is also, all right. Ziggy, who are the lead actors in the movie Strategic Air Command?
The lead actors in the movie Strategic Air Command are James Stewart and June Allison.
Thank you. That's all.
Would you like to know more about James Stewart's career?
No, thank you. Okay, so Jimmy Stewart. Woo, I got it right. You don't know how proud I am. All right, so Strategic Air Command. Anyway, we had moved to Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska, which was also Strategic Air Command base. And again, my brain goes through all these pictures I have from the emblem, the patch and everything. And yes, one bolt of lightning goes behind the other cloud. If it shows it in front of the cloud, it's not like real, at least after like the first year of the patch. All right, okay. Let's really do some stuff here. Are you ready to just really do some stuff here? I'm getting ready. So tell me about your day. One of the things about not writing a book and actually doing a video book, real time. Again, indica, no sativa, especially now. I don't need the anxiety. Alrighty. Where are we? Right, so we left the other car on Guam, sold it to somebody, and car sold fast when they were there because you got a lot of young GIs, they want to get around. And we got, and I have pictures, and I know it says on them, but I like I said in the very beginning intro, I can't do a whole PowerPoint here, but we had, it was a Delta 88 or a Delta 98. I think a Delta 88 rolls more off the tongue. It was forest green. It later became my brother Gary's car, but that's the car we had in Nebraska. I liked the heft of it. It wasn't as pretty as the Chevy, but I liked the heft of it. Okay, I also, Mom still smoked. Mom had started smoking in England, still smoked. So I remember trying Mom's cigarettes. Tried it in the shower and blowing it out the window and stuff, just a couple, didn't really like it, didn't try anymore. There were still no conversations at home. It was still pretty much be seen and not heard. There was less nagging at the table, which was a good thing. But it went from how you breathe, how you eat, how you chew, how you hold your fork, how you sit, no elbows on the table, napkins in your lap, etc. The King and I, not a very good job of him, but Bill Brenner, had a big crush on him back in the day. Anyway, all the stuff became mainly finish everything on your plate, finish everything on your plate. And I was still having a hard time gaining weight. And by this time, my family nickname, or at least by the folks, was Skinny Minnie. So, woohoo. And I was also, long before the thing of cutting people down, which we'll come to in a few levels, but like Marcella was still being called stupid, dumb, ugly, fat, now. Fat was, added in there. I don't remember as many slaps. I don't remember spankings. So some of the physical stuff that we had gone through previously had eased up. Yeah. But still, no conversations at meals. No conversations generally. Not even really like how was school or anything. It was, if we were eating, it was basically to get the eating done and go. And I had become a slow eater. I was actually ended up being a slow eater till I wasn't, and we'll get to that part too. But yeah, I was a slow eater, so still wary, not as afraid, I don't think, in my everyday in our household as I had been on Guam, but still wary of things. Yeah, by then I think we pretty much we're down with the rules. All right. Did I get that? Oh, I got those things without even realizing I did. Did have a friend over a couple times, and actually went to her house a couple times and slept over at her house once or twice. I don't know for sure if she slept over at my house. So, actually had friends over, which we had never had friends over before. I do remember at some point, what's his name? Can't remember his name. I think the TV show was Alias Smith and Jones, and one or the other of the actors in Alias Smith and Jones had ended his own life. And I remember she and I being, this girlfriend and I being really upset about this, because we were into that show. And this is like coming from Guam, where no real TV, really, to TV. So, yeah, so I do remember Mom mentioning when I was going to spend the night over there, I remember hearing her say to the other girl's mother, to keep an eye on us, because we were both really upset about this actor and what had happened. So I do remember that. So interest in a friend, having a friend, it was, I gotta say, for me personally, through my lifetime, even to that point of being 12 years old, I did not feel socialized. I had gone to school. I had known hundreds of kids for whatever amount of time, coming and going. But I didn't feel what I would call later years or now. I didn't feel socialized. I didn't feel like is this too early? I didn't have a fucking clue who I was. Just me. Let alone me apart from, never me apart from anybody else. Or I kind of knew my relationship to my family people. But anyway, I didn't feel socialized at all. I didn't. For all the people and all the places and all that time, I didn't know who I was. I don't remember really having I don't know how to explain it. Conscious in the moment thought of myself. Somebody else might know if that has a name, but I didn't feel socialized with other kids, other people, even my own family. We never had conversations. So yeah. So anyway, it was like that. Okay, so I had a friend over. Oh, okay, I gotta skip a little bit here. Okay, I remember Marcella there really only getting yelled at. That's of what I remember. Oh, I guess there were other things. When she'd make rice, remember rice, and Mom would get really, really mad because there would be rice all over the kitchen. I do remember, as soon as I think about the kitchen though, I remember Marcella and I doing dishes together, neither of us liking it or wanting to do it, but I think it's only the one of the few things we ever did together. And she taught me to sing the song, "And as a Round," the deacon went down. The deacon went down. Did I? I didn't. Just a song that, and she learned it at school, I think. I don't know if she was in choir. Something I remember her like learning how to sing, so she may have been actually in choir. You gotta remember, she's like 5 years older than me, and even though in Nebraska I shared a room with her, on Guam I always shared with Gary. In Washington before that I shared some time with each of them, but being the middle kid I always shared with somebody the whole time. So in Nebraska I was sharing with her, so we did have a room together. I was very much a neat freak, very much OCD neat, and she was very much not. So when it was time for her to clean her room, her half of the room, I cleaned her half of the room. Okay, so where am I? Yeah, so we learned to sing that song together, and yeah, I'll get ahead of myself if I keep going with that right now. Oh, I was in the 7th grade there, and I remember wanting to go by my middle name, Yvonne, Yvonne, and it helps to go by your middle name if you remember you're going by your middle name, and that if somebody says your middle name, you should probably answer to it. So that didn't work out very well, but I was trying to like be myself, get to know myself, have some self. I had not had any self. I had not had any self. I had no sense of self, really, honestly. Okay. I also remember a couple other things, but not very much. And they were a little later on in the time we were there, even though I think I did all of 7th grade there, but honestly, it was kind of a blur. But I do remember my sister Marcella getting in trouble for slapping a cop. She did get arrested. 12, 5, so she was 17. And I think she got really angry at that point about that or something. The folks put her in a place where she really was like in a padded room. That is simply all I remember, because honestly, after what had happened to her on Guam and that whole situation that was in chapter 5, I don't think I could go there on what was happening with her then. Even though we shared a room, we were absolutely two separate people. by then, and I just remember blurs of things, and that was some of the blurs of things. But the fact that she was put in a padded room at one point during that time kind of became a desire of mine later on at a few different times in my own life, but getting ahead of myself. So anyway, let's see, the song. All right, so also during this time, one of the shows, there were some big shows. I think one of them was like The Love Boat, Love American Style. Those two I remember for sure during that time because they were big primetime things. Anyway, Gary and I are down there watching. I believe we had just finished Love American Style. Gary kind of remembers it differently, but he can say how he remembers it when he's there, when he comes here, how it was there for him. But I remember that we had just watched Love American Style, and Dad was like nonchalantly, who Dad hardly ever, unless he was telling me how to and showing me how to do something, we never really talked. I think that was part of our thing, is like do stuff and not talk. Just do stuff. Just do stuff. So anyway, I do remember Dad saying something along the lines of, by the way, your mom and I are getting a divorce. My folks, now I've told you, there was never conversation, even with them at the dinner table. Anytime, I don't remember any conversations. If we were at the dinner table, it was about specifically eating or food. I just, no conversations ever, especially not with us kids. I remember yelling, screaming, stuff like that, but no actual conversations through these years. So not only is Dad talking, Dad's saying that him and Mom are getting a divorce. I used to remember what I said and thought next, something I think along the lines of, really, or are you? I don't think really was a thing even. Shock, for sure. I remember looking at him. And then I remember me and Gary running upstairs crying, and Mom laying on the bed in their room, reading or something, and going, "You're getting a divorce." And Mom was like, "Damn him," or something, "Darn him." The damn and darn were about the worst, or darn it, the worst they would get, and swearing, we were going to tell you together. We were supposed to tell you together, or something along that line. And then running into my room. And then it became a whirlwind of packing and getting ready to move, and finding out that Marcella already knew about the divorce. And Marcella, even though she was not 18 yet, was going to stay in Nebraska. And the folks were going to set her up with an apartment and no job that I knew of, but like pay her rent for 3 months, and then she's like on her own. So leave her there. Me, Gary, and Mom were moving to California. Didn't have a place to go to, our own place to go to yet. So we were going to move in with some family friends that we had known on Guam, and then again briefly as we were coming to Offutt Air Force Base, they were leaving already. So, but a family that we had known on Guam. And so yeah, all the packing, getting ready to move. I believe I finished 7th grade there. Now, one thing good I gotta say about 7th grade, other than not answering to the name I decided I wanted to be called. Oh, I didn't even know myself enough to be even embarrassed about anything I did or even didn't do. I had no sense of self. But there was a class, and it was an extracurricular class, but during class time, like you get taken instead of a study hall or something, because 7th grade was the first grade where we went from class to class to class, different classes for different subjects. But it was a reading class, and they were all excited because they had these machines that would like show up on the screen and just have this light that you could change the speed of that would run across the words. And it taught you not to just see word, 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 but to see a continuation of words. And then you could speed up the light, and it was a do as you go yourself thing. And I remember really loving, again, like the accuracy of being able to do that and go faster and read faster, and really, really enjoyed that. Okay, so we're leaving, we're packing up a big, okay, a fan I have that I got in Japan. I remember like souvenirs now that I had, and a pair of wooden Japanese shoes that I actually still have. And I did have this big, beautiful Japanese tapestry that I know I packed up, but later on it was found somewhere else. It didn't go to where I was going. And then me and what else was there? Oh, okay. Why the divorce? First of all, it was always a kind of a known thing, but you don't know it in your own family until it happens. That so many couples would divorce after Guam. I don't know if it was because it was, I don't know. I was a kid. I don't know what it was, but it was like a thing that so many couples would divorce after Guam. So for Dad, it was Dad met another woman. The job Dad had while we were at Offutt was traveling to other military bases that had munitions, and he was a munitions inspector for regular munitions and nuclear. So, yeah, because he had also been on Guam, and bombs on the B-52 can be equipped with or without nuclear bombs, so, or a combination of both, non and nuclear. So, so he was inspecting other bases, munitions and stuff, and checking Titans and going to other places. And somebody introduced him to a woman named Gloria, and she and him were going to be together. So, but he had to go to Thailand first for a year. So me and Mom and Gary packed up the, I know, was it a Delta 88? Gary, I don't know. I know in pictures. But anyway, I haven't even pulled out the pictures on this trip. I'm sure I still covered things. But anyway, my sister's staying in Nebraska at 17, and that would be probably just before she turned 17. So she was still 16 when we were leaving, and she was being left with 3 months rent, and there you go. Me, Mom, and Gary were leaving for California, and Dad was going to Thailand. Our things would follow us. Marcella had whatever Marcella had. Oh, and Dad left without saying goodbye to go to Thailand. So I was crushed. Dad was my idol. So, wow, I just thought of that. I hadn't really thought of that. But yeah, I was pretty crushed that Dad had left without saying goodbye. So anyway, I do believe Okay, so I'm basically going to be running basically 10 minutes over the hour. I'm going to move into chapter 7. 7 is not my lucky number. 13 is my lucky number. So I'm going into chapter 7. It's not a lucky chapter. Everything in my universe, my personal, have no sense of myself, who I am, yet everything that I know about everything around me and everything I know and don't know about myself is about to it's going to change. Everything's going to change. So, all right. I'm Cindy Y. Davis. By the way, that is spelled CYNDEE, which to me is the right way. So I never really think to say, but yeah. I'm Cindy Y. I hear it differently too. It doesn't sound like a CINDY or a CYNDI or any, and it's wider. Yeah. But that's me. Anyway, I'm Cindy Y. Davis at CYDdidScientology, CYD, my initials, CYDdidScientology. And I'll see you for chapter 7. If all goes well, it'll be shortly. Have fun out there.